been using Claude and Cursor for almost a year now, and I have to be honest with you, I was completely overthinking MCPs. Did you also get that feeling when everyone was posting their crazy MCP setups? Controlling Spotify using AI, connecting Cursor with like 15 different services. I genuinely thought that I was missing out on so much tech if I wasn't using every MCP available. But here's what actually happened. In the last 6 months, I've been able to build one web application, one App Store submission, and one university project, all using only 2 MCPs, on top of write the documentation for all of those projects. But the most crazy part is that I'm getting the majority of the solution from my AI on my first try with Sonnet 4, and I'm only using 2 MCPs. The problem wasn't that I needed more MCPs, it was that I was overcomplicating what should be simple. If you're new here, my name is Daniel, I'm a software engineering student trying to become an indie developer, and this is going to be the workflow of how I've been using MCPs to build my solo projects. No complexity, no overwhelming, just 2 MCPs that are gonna skyrocket your productivity as a developer. Now before we dive in, I know that some old man announced that he was going to implement MCP technology into ChatGPT, which I think is going to benefit all of the tech users as a community. But my focus is going to be on Claude Desktop and on Cursor, since they are the 2 main tools that I've been using through my development process. This distinction is super important and you'll understand why at the end of the video. This video is not about what MCPs are, but for me, MCPs are a bit like plugins that you add to the LLMs to give them access to another tools. File system MCP. Let's talk about the MCP that completely changed how I interact with my code bases. I'm sure that you've been in this situation where you're trying to debug or create a feature and you have multiple files that you need to give to Claude, and you have to be copy and pasting these in different chats because sometimes Claude doesn't get it right away. For me, this was a very tedious process up until I found this MCP. The file system MCP allows you to read, edit, delete, essentially modify files directly into your computer. The advantage of this is that it doesn't consume tokens, so you're saving all of those tokens that you will usually make you hit your rate limit in Claude. You will completely be saving those. Instead of manually having to fit all of these files into Claude, I can just give it a file path, tell it to analyze those documents inside that path, and then we can start having conversations about what the context of that code base is. Now, regarding with the feature of modifying and deleting files, you have to be quite careful. It can be very easy to go into this AI workflow where you're not really thinking and you're just saying yes to the AI without analyzing what the AI is giving you, and this can be very dangerous. When I discovered this MCP, my first take was, oh, I'm not gonna pay anymore for Cursor because I can just do the same that I'm doing with Claude Desktop, even if it's a little bit more uncomfortable. But it's not as accurate. File system is great to save tokens, but it doesn't have the capabilities that Cursor has to understand the full context of your code base. It's good for simple, straightforward features where you can save 1 or 2 fast credits, but I wouldn't say it's a complete replacement for Cursor. I've mainly been using it for UI, things that are not required in logic, things more about styling, and I've also been using it to write documentation and task projects, because what I do is that at the same time that I'm developing my project, I'm also writing an MD file with the process of the things that I've done and what I need to do to complete this project, and also another one where I'm writing the documentation of what this project is doing, what the file's purposes are, all of these things, because in the future when I have to feed that MD file to another AI or in another context, it's gonna understand it right away. And it can be very dangerous to modify files if you already have a dirty tree and you haven't committed to GitHub. For me, if I'm going to change something through this MCP, I make sure to have my tree clean in case that Claude breaks something or it doesn't understand what I'm trying to do. I completely can erase all of those changes that Claude did because it gets much more messy since you don't have that integration between Claude Desktop and your actual code base. I wouldn't suggest doing so, at least I personally don't like to give it so much control. Every time that I need to do something specific, I use Claude Desktop, I get it right away, and then I commit those changes, but I never try to keep building up on that same chat multiple features. I've only installed this in the Claude Desktop app. I tried to install it on the Cursor app and it just didn't make any sense. It felt a bit redundant, and in my experience, it didn't give me as good as an output as it did with the Cursor indexing system. Cursor still works better than using file system with the Claude Desktop app, but it can save you tokens, so I wouldn't say that it's a useless tool. It's just a tool for small things that don't really require so much computational power or understanding of your code base. Sequential thinking MCP. Now let's start with the MCP that truly changed everything for me. And I know what you're thinking when I said the name. Why not simply use Sonnet 4 Thinking? I'll tell you why. Because Sonnet 4 Thinking requires 2 faster credits in Cursor instead of 1. And it seems like a small thing, but remember that those credits pile up. So as much as I can save those credits, the better it's going to be for my developer workflow. But let me tell you what I discovered through my testing. I've used this MCP primarily with 3.7. I haven't tested it so much with 4, but for Sonnet 3.7's thinking, it drastically underperformed in comparison to 3.7 plus the MCP of sequential thinking. So for me, it wasn't only just a cost reason, it was because the 3.7 plus the sequential thinking was performing better at solving my task and understanding the full context of my prompt than the 3.7 thinking model from Claude. And if this video saved you even one cursor credit, please subscribe to my channel and give it a like to this video, because I'm really working hard into getting these videos to you guys, so I'll really appreciate it if you can support me. Thank you. What makes this MCP so powerful is its ability to turn one simple prompt into multiple tasks and multiple thoughts that it needs to solve before it actually reaches to the end conclusion. If I input a prompt that it has as a context multiple files, it's going to create a thought for each one of those files, or at least for understanding each one of those files, and after that it's going to give me the solution to the prompt that I inputted, and it's going to give me usually a straightforward answer about what I need. It's not perfect, it definitely still has mistakes, but this has been by far the biggest change in my workflow as a developer, because it skyrocketed my productivity and my one shot that I was getting with AI. Now, this is something that I discovered the hard way. When I heard about the concept of NCPs, I was super excited. I saw a lot of people developing different NCPs, people saying that it was going to be the next concept of APIs, plenty of people developing niche NCPs for specific solutions. But in my opinion, a lot of this is over-engineering very simple things, and not only that, it is truly creating dependency on your AI models. I'm not saying that AI shouldn't be used, it's supposed to be a tool, but the moment that you try to make this Jarvis-like artificial intelligence where it's going to solve everything that you're doing at the computer for you, I think it's just a recipe for disaster, at least on May 2025. I think that AI is supposed to be used to skyrocket your development and speed it up, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn how to use the tools that AI is giving you advantage on. Things that I know I'm going to be repeating myself across my development career, I try to learn as much as I can and actually read the documentation, because definitely AI still can sometimes over-engineer solutions. Things like Supabase, Revenue Cat, React Native, Expo, those documentation, you should be really familiarized with them if you're doing mobile development. You shouldn't want to skip through those just because AI can get you through them. You need to understand the technologies that you're using and then speed it up with AI, but otherwise you're not really gonna know how to use that technology and you're not really gonna know what AI is going to give you. For my current workflow, if I know that it's a technology that I'm going to keep using, I read the documentation first, then I implement it, and if it works, I ask AI to optimize it or try to improve it. If I know that it's something I'm not going to use again, that's where I use AI, try to speed run it through that. If you've used Cursor, you probably have at least once entered this flow state where you're just saying fix it, fix it, fix it on the chat, and that can create very dangerous things to your project, so just prevent it from doing that. Speaking of NCPs, there's one bonus that I want to talk about, the GitHub NCP, and honestly I have mixed feelings about this one just because of what I was mentioning on the previous point. I'm a solo developer and I've never worked in a software engineering company. I'm barely studying university, so I've only used GitHub for personal projects and for maintaining the versions of my projects. I know that it's much more complex than that, but at least myself, I wouldn't want to give AI the complete access to my GitHub account, because it can be very easy to not pay attention to what you're doing and mindlessly push or pull things that don't need to be pushed or pulled. If you break a project, if something goes wrong, you're gonna give it full accessibility to GitHub and to be able to push those things into production, zero consequences, and you're not really gonna have anyone to set a complaint with, because that's just you setting yourself up for failure. I think it's valuable for certain tasks, especially for understanding what repos are and what they contain, but I also think that with the web search capabilities that the AIs are developing, it's completely unnecessary. You do you, it's a great MCP, I wouldn't install it. MCPs have become this buzzword that everyone's building them every day. But you know what I also keep seeing? Developers trying to have the perfect Cursor or Claude Desk setup with their NCPs completely optimized to become the next AI god. You don't need that. Just build the project that you want to build, ship it fast, don't overthink it, just do it.